It is such an honor to have you. I already look up to you so much. And before we begin, I'm going to introduce you by the story that happened to me, which is how I found your amazing company. I don't even want to call it a company. I want to call it like a healthcare system. I was one of the first people to be on lockdown in New York City. And I believe in India, they were already on lockdown, correct? I think they were.
Yeah.
So it was March 5th, and I got a call from my head of school. I was working at 4 different schools, teaching kids meditation, mindfulness, my own curriculum, accompanied with the arts, writing and speaking and singing. And one of the schools called me, and even though I was only there 1 day a week, the head of school said, "You have to stay in your apartment for 9 days." And my heart stopped because I don't do drugs. I've never smoked pot, never been drunk, but I love nature. And similar to a lot of my Indian friends, if I don't connect with the earth, skin to the earth every day, I don't have a good day. So I need to nature walk every day. It is my only drug. And I love to talk to strangers. It's one of my things. It's why I started this podcast, and I have a documentary on it. So that was like cutting my limbs off. That's literally how I felt. And I'm thinking, I have to stay in this tiny apartment on Central Park, and the park's right out there, and I can't even see it from my window. And then I prayed and I meditated. And in that meditation, I asked God what I always do, not why is this happening? Because that's the worst question to ask, because who are we, God? I asked, what can I do in this moment? And I swear to God, I opened up my computer and I saw, I'm going to start crying, myyogateacher.com. And I thought, oh, I have the chills thinking about this right now, because I actually haven't told the story ever. We lived it, but this is my first time telling the story to our listeners. And I swear I opened it up and it was like, free session right now, one-on-one. I'm like, wait, one-on-one? Okay, where's the hook? And I signed up for a session that day. I signed up for a session the next day. It was the only window of mental wellness that I had for those first 3 days, where I felt like someone was in my apartment. See, I hadn't really used Zoom so much. And all of a sudden, I am with someone who's holding my heart and really practicing yoga. And I, of course, have done a deep dive since the pandemic began through Deepak Chopra's work of really understanding what yoga is. I've been taking yoga for years, only very basic classes and meditation yoga usually. But I'm sorry to make such a long intro, but I have to tell you that you may have been responsible for saving my mental health. And I'm certain thousands of other people, because you offered this free service to people one-on-one. I mean, to have one-on-one today, it's hundreds of dollars an hour on Zoom with some of the best teachers. And I just want to say thank you. I said thank you then. I got you on the phone somehow, because of course I was like, I need to do a Mossad and figure out who is the person behind this incredible gift to humanity. And I am so excited that I have a podcast where I get to just scream it to the world. We're on the top 100 podcasts in Iceland. So now people in Iceland know that this guy saved my life and many others. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell us how you got to be who you are. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. That's an amazing story. My name is Jitendra. I am the founder and CEO of My Yoga Teacher. Before My Yoga Teacher, I started another company called Punch. Did really well. I'm what people call a serial entrepreneur. This is my third company. My second one was when I was doing it. One of the things I started realizing was that I would be stressed out, and I would not know what to do with taking care of myself. My wife kind of told me to do yoga, and whenever I did it, I'd be like, "There's some magic here." So I started thinking about this as Punch was building up and getting to be hugely successful. I tried going to yoga classes, yoga studios, but that didn't work because I would be busy and I would figure out a way, and there would always be a reason not to go. And I'd be like, okay, I'll go tomorrow. What I needed was that one-on-one connection, that accountability. And that's that's when the idea for my yoga teacher came in. I found a teacher in India. Um, it had to be affordable. It had to be great. Uh, and with the teacher in India, I kind of got both of those. And as soon as I did that, I was like, wow, there is a huge opportunity here. There is a huge need for a lot of people to get incredible instructions at an affordable rate. And that's how my yoga teacher came to be.
Tell me more about the magic of yoga for you. Like, where was that connection? Did you feel it in your heart? Did you feel it in your mind? Was it a combination where you would notice things were different in your life when you finally started to commit? Because I also had that same thing where it was like, oh, I'll meditate tomorrow, the put off, like, oh, one day I'll do that. So
The biggest is just awareness and a little bit of a sense of self-control. Make up these plans. I would have these ideas that, okay, my kids would say, hey, you're sitting there at the dinner table, but you're not there because, you're thinking of something else. My wife would be like, did you even hear what I said? But with yoga, taking the time, and I practice 3 times a week, I just am able to be more connected with myself. Um, my tennis game has improved dramatically on the physical side, but also my presence has improved so much. I'm able to connect with my kids so much more. I'm able to be there for the best part of their lives as they're growing up. So much more relaxed, right? Punch was, when I was building Punch, I used to be stressed. With my yoga teacher, it's just been a labor of love to keep a bigger perspective and connect with what is bothering you and kind of work it out. So all of that really has transformed my life.
I sent you a little picture the other day from the book Abundance by Deepak Chopra. I've read all of his books, and the first one I read was the seven spiritual laws of success. When I was 19, I started meditating because of him, and I went out into the wilderness. And he says, "Sit on the ground" in that book, and I still have it. It's like highlighted all over the place. It was like my first Bible because I really wasn't into my own religion, sadly, before then. And after going to India and Thailand and Japan and Hong Kong and studying all these world religions, I finally came back home to Israel when I was like 24, 25 and stayed for almost 2 years. And that's when I really found a meshing of everything and how it's all so connected. But his words spoke right to my heart. And one of them is when you just sit in yoga, which really is meditation, it's where inside meets outside, right? That's like, I think what the word actually means. I think what I love about it the most for me is when we can physicalize, right? Like mindfulness actually is not what everyone thinks it is, where you become mindful. It's actually almost mindlessness, where you're noticing your mind and then you're allowing it to let go.
That's right.
And I think what's so great about yoga is that, especially, and I really appreciated it when I was very high stress and high anxiety, during the beginning of the pandemic, that's why it was so beneficial, is I noticed where the anxiety felt in my body. Now, anxiety is not actually something we feel, and I talk about this a lot throughout this podcast and in my documentaries, that anxiety is a symptom that something much, much bigger is going on. But we call it anxiety, we call it depression, right? And that way the pharmaceutical companies, please don't cancel me, but can then come in and say, you have anxiety, here's a pill. You have depression. And I'm not, for anyone who's listening who really struggles with those symptoms, I'm not trying to say you have nothing to worry about. But what I've learned in my own practice with anxiety and depressive moments is that it really, really is a symptom of something much bigger going on, something spiritual, something emotional, something physical. And I think I would love to hear your response, because it's very obvious when you go to your website, myyogateacher.com, go there right now. Especially if you're worried about germs, whatever, it's just such a great answer for, having no excuse. You can't go through traffic. You can't put it off till tomorrow. If you have an appointment at 9 a.m. on Friday morning, you're going to be able to do it because it's you and your teacher. So what was your intention when you put it together for the world?
There are a lot of people in the world who really love exercising, and I'm not one of those. Exercising has always been a little bit of a chore. And having that accountability really changed everything. That having a teacher who is there, I mean, this is why anybody, a lot of the rich people they have personal trainers, because if you can afford it, you know they're going to keep you accountable and you're going to work out and you're going to be fit as a result. Our goal was to make it affordable for everyone who's really holding you by the hand and just making sure that you're kind of overcoming that ambivalence and inertia is the best way to do it. This is actually the only way to do it in a very consistent way. And that's what we were looking to do, to bring the world closer, to connect each other, and as a result, help all of us overcome our ambivalence and inertia and be healthier and happier.
What's one thing that you notice in the healthcare system or how we're treating patients right now with emotional distress, uh, physical distress? What's one thing that you're seeing as a problem that you think maybe yoga could help solve or alleviate?
I think we're going through an epidemic of stress, isolation, and loneliness in America. People are stressed out. It could be the market forces, could be politics. There are just so many things going on, and people are stressed out. Um, and and to overcome that, um, what you really need is, you talked about pharmaceuticals as one of the things that people do. It really is not about that. It's about building those human connections back. We're getting isolated. We are getting kind of into our own silos, not talking to each other, and having that experience of our humanity, our connection with each other, is really the way we're going to get out of this. Um, and so that's what we are looking at doing, just providing that human connection. Every session we do is live with the live teacher. What is happening? A lot of companies are trying to apply AI to this. Artificial intelligence is not what you need. What you need is the human intelligence. Um, the Just kind of not another machine. This is a very human situation, human problem. Ambivalence and inertia doesn't happen with machines. It's having two different sides of different pieces going together in our heads is very human, and that requires a human solution, and that's what we're about.
Yeah, I think that hopefully yoga could be the first step to having people meditate um, every day more connectedly. And I know from my experience with my yoga teacher, for those first, I mean, I did it the entire 9 days that I was in the apartment. And then I believe on day 10 or 11 or 12 is when I left New York. And I was so worried that I was sick, God forbid, even though I wasn't, thank God, but maybe I had been exposed, but I had no symptoms. But every time I might have coughed or hiccuped, I was like, oh my God, I have it. Or do I have a headache? Or, I was taking all my vitamins and my supplements like crazy.
Mhm.
But I remember thinking that it wasn't just the yoga. It wasn't just getting connected to my body. It was that the person on the other end of the computer really seemed to care about my well-being, and their voice. I mean, also I was connecting straight to India. I think a couple times I had a teacher in Canada or the States, but it was mostly India. And even if at the time the broadband wasn't so good, my broadband in my building was terrible. It was a really old building. I felt very held. And I think that's what you're talking about. And I want to sort of segue here into healthcare, because I recently endured a back injury. And I wanted to tell, I couldn't wait to tell you about this today. I saw a spine doctor who will remain nameless because I don't like to badmouth people ever in my life. But I want to use it as an example because it was so scary. He looked me straight in the face. And after just looking at one x-ray, said, "You will never feel better," I quote, "unless you take medicine." And I said, "Oh, you don't know who you're dealing with. I just had a documentary of mine in a big film festival for recovery. And even though I'm not in recovery for drugs or substances, I'm very much against people doing drugs." And I said, I also am friends with the author of, his name is Harry Nelson, of The United States of Opioids. It's an amazing book that talks about how we're overusing opioids. It's the number one cause of death, at least in Florida, the state that I'm in right now, for people under the age of 40. And I know that the numbers are very similar in other states. So then I went and found this incredible turmeric doctor. She happens to be Indian. Her name is Dr. Shivani Gupta, and she's amazing. And she comes from a family of surgeons, but she herself practices alternative medicine and teaches it. So after meeting her and learning about the benefits of organic turmeric, I use it like an aspirin or a Tylenol. I don't actually take Tylenol anyway, but I do deep meditation. And when I went back, they laughed at me. I went for a second opinion, not him, but a different doctor. He said, at your rate, after taking the MRI, just keep taking turmeric, do Pilates, do yoga, meditate, and God willing, the lower back, it'll fuse on its own. And it's amazing that in the same exact office, you could have two doctors with two completely different opinions. And one sent me crying to the river where I go to cry. I literally cry by a river often. And the other one, I felt like the sun was out. So what do you have to say about that? I'm sure you get lots of practitioners and different kinds of healers, alternative medicine. Do you have anything to say about other alternate, styles of healing? Will that also come onto your website? I would love to hear.
We're a big believer in alternative medicine. Part of the problems are so complex that just taking like one dimensional, one variable approach is just not the right way to do it. So we just recently signed up with Dr. Lauren Fishman, who's wrote this really famous book, Yoga for Back Pain, which is essentially the Bible for back pain. We have a huge number of therapists who actually are very much focused on back pain, knee pain, neck pain, in terms of helping you work out for do asanas for those. The idea with yoga, Barbara, is that there are levels, right? You start with the physical practice, then there is the breathing, there is the meditation, and then different levels that you can go in. A number of times, the pain that we feel is actually not related to just the pain. It's actually created by our minds. And having an ability to kind of really calm your mind down and really let the body kind of do its work is actually one of the most important thing that anybody suffering from chronic pain can do. So yoga actually, breathing, some of these practices, some of these disciplines that really build up that reserve for you to be able to deal with the pain, to accept it, to kind of work on physically work on it, mentally work on it, is I believe a really great way to do it. We see there are about 30 million people in America who are suffering from chronic pain. And there is, physiotherapy market with the insurance, with the way that is set up, it's out of reach for a lot of people. We want to take care of, all of those people. We have incredible therapists who can do one-on-one practice and really put together a plan to get you holistically put together and be back.
Yeah. And I think what's so cool, at least Shivani has been sharing this with me, that people during one of the greatest, I actually wrote a book right around the time that I met you in that bed where I was calling you from. I wrote this book called And Then One Day the World Coughed, and it's all about the blessings of the pandemic and how people started relaxing more and getting off their phones and spending time at home with their families and forgiving each other, which is, I think, the oil that greases the nerves in our system and actually creates new nerves new genes rather, that goes through the body. So, one of the benefits of staying home and actually not being able to go to the doctor is people started researching, what could I eat instead? And what are the best foods to eat during a pandemic or ever? And people became more vegan. And I say more vegan because I'm one of those people like, Jesse Seinfeld, vegan at times, right? I took milk out of my diet mostly. I really have embraced this new way of looking at my body, that it could actually help me instead of being afraid of it. Or I have a symptom, let me stamp it out with medicine. Like medicine can only go so far. It may break down certain things, but then how do you build up? And yoga just fits so nicely there. And I heard Shivani say that people have been reaching out to her for turmeric because they realize, Tylenol is actually causing my liver or my kidneys to have damage. And it's not really helpful for my body. It's helpful for my mind because it's a blocker of pain. And I think that there's something, and now we're going to get into the forgiveness part. You said you said a lot of profound things today. But I think one of the biggest ones is that a lot of our pain can sometimes be referral pain, or literally like a kindling effect. Like when I first started having lower back pain, I actually went to different memories in my body and in my mind that these cells were holding. And I really would love to hear, if you want to, because I ask all of my guests, what's one of your biggest forgiveness stories? Because I think that if we all took a few moments every day as we meditate to release the anger or pain that we have that's emotional towards someone or some event, or maybe even God, a higher being, whatever you think caused the issues in your life, if we could really release them, do you think that would, number one, the question is, do you think that would have an effect on our overall well-being? And then if you'd like to speak to your biggest forgiveness story, I'd love to hear it.
It would absolutely help everybody if they were more forgiving, because when you hold that and you don't forgive, it's the only person you're harming is yourself. And one of the things that I noticed, and this is about me forgiving myself, I love food, and I would eat, I would overeat, and it would lead for me to kind of like feel guilty. Good food, eat a bit too much, it happens. But then what happens is that leads to guilt, and that guilt leads to just kind of like blowing it up, and us kind of losing, because of the guilt, it kind of undercuts our self-control, and the next day you kind of abuse it even more. The key thing that keeps it going is blaming ourselves, not forgiving ourselves. Is this, as I started kind of accepting it and just kind of like saying that, hey, there are days I do really good, and there's some days I don't, and it's okay. It's human to be part of that. And as I got rid of that guilt, it just gave me so much more control, realizing and kind of connecting with myself more, that, okay, what is really happening here? Why does this happen?
Beautiful. I have to tell you that most of the people that I have on this podcast, always say, I have to forgive myself. And isn't that so the case, that we hold on to anger or pain from someone else? Like, I'm sure you could probably find someone in your memory bank who may have deemed you wrong for overeating a long time ago. And I think if you just went back a little bit, you'd be like, oh, well, it's that person's fault that I'm overeating in the first place, because they framed me, right? Like I was a fat kid, or whatever that, a lot of people carry that. I'm not saying you do, but because my mom or my dad or my grandmother told me I was eating too much. And then that becomes part of our overall like thought process and our programming, which creates genes that then create cortisol that goes through the body. And we say, oh, I have to eat a little bit more paneer, or whatever it is, so we do these things, and then we have to forgive ourselves for allowing the programming to keep going. Everyone on this podcast really is in the process of forgiving themselves, because we're all a hologram. Everyone outside of us who has wronged us, or said the meanest thing, or did something terrible to us, we actually we get the power to label it like, that helped me in my life overall, or that hurt me. And my job, I hope, as a leader or teacher, or this podcaster, one of the reasons I created it is because the day that I decided that everything God does is either good or very, very good, because that's what my Torah teaches me in the first paragraph of the Torah, then I have to believe that even the things that were so painful are ultimately for the world's good, even though sometimes I may cause them, if that makes sense. And we actually have the ability, right, to choose to continue in a bad path or a good path.
It applies to a lot of my relationships. I'm kind of like getting to a place to be more forgiving and not holding on to conflicts and all that, and just letting go, and more accepting of my wife, more kind of like loving towards my kids, and letting them do what they have to do, and not be you know, so structured in my thinking.
And isn't that amazing? So much of the time, whatever we're doing to ourselves, we're all going to do it to others. And that's why I'm so passionate about forgiveness, because I say to people, when someone says, "Oh, I can never forget them," or "I don't talk to my brother anymore." Now, again, I always have to caveat this by saying, if the person is physically or emotionally or sexually abusive, clearly there are rules, I think, in karma, that you don't actually have to be physically near them or even talk to them again. However, I really believe this, and maybe you'll agree with me, that in this day and age, cancel culture is so thick that it feels like, I don't know this to be true, but it feels like people are cutting each other off because of how they voted, or because of one thing they said on Facebook, or because they once had an argument with them and it was hard.
Yeah.
And to me, we are not going to make it, in my humble opinion, as a human race, if we continue to have these crazy rules of this is right. This, I mean, people are saying get away from religion, right? And dogma, right? They don't want dogmatic rules. But then when it, as human beings, we're meaning making machines. So we cut people off and we scream at them and we defriend and block. I'm using your terms in Cupertino, like, technically. And so I'm it's my hope that people will have more of an awakening the way that you did. And I also want to say that I love to hear, these big CEOs of the tech companies come out and share their true feelings and what they're growing through, philosophically, because, you can come across like, and I'm sure, lots of people in Silicon Valley. I know the show. I have a few friends that were on that show. It's hilarious, but it's also very dark and very sad.
Totally agree with you. I think this is it's we are too quick to make very simplistic, put simplistic labels, think about people in one dimensional, one variable kind of a way, and everybody is complex, and there is a lot more going on, and the more we can appreciate it, we will find that 99% is pretty much common, same as ours. 1% that we might be disagreeing on is just that, but beneath it, it's like everybody is cut from the same cloth. If we have the time, Barbara, really beautiful story from this is a story of this very famous Muslim character, Mullah Nasiruddin. And one day, Mullah Nasiruddin is kind of like, it's dusk. This is pre-electricity days in a little town in Pakistan. He's kind of on all fours outside his house in a small town, and a couple of soldiers kind of walk by, and they're like, "Mullaji, what happened? What are you doing?" And Mullaji's like, "Oh, I lost my key." So they're like, "Okay, let's help you." So they get on all fours. They start looking. A couple of shopkeepers come by, and they're like, "What are you guys doing? What's going on?" So the soldiers say, "Mullaji lost his keys." So they're like, "Okay, let's kind of help as well." So they get on all fours. Then a kid walks by, and kid looks at Mullaji, and he's like, "Mullaji, what happened?" And Mullaji is like, "I lost my key." So he's like, "Okay, I'll help you, but where did you lose it?" And Mullaji says, "I actually lost it inside the house." So the kid says, "So then why are you looking for it outside?" And Mullaji says, "Because there is no light inside." I am looking for it where, I kind of, I don't know what is there inside. And I just, I'm kind of thinking, there's no chance he's going to get his key. But that's what we keep doing. We just keep kind of getting on all fours, looking for like things outside. Whereas like, the thing that unlocks it is inside the house, because and yoga is the way in which you can actually turn on the light inside. And you can actually find your keys and be on your way.
Oh, that was so beautiful. First thing I thought was, is he going to say they weren't in plank pose? there are so many spiritual, like I could cry. I went to a physical therapist recently and I said, it's so funny that I'm having this now because it was rescheduled. And since I've been in my 3rd month of Pilates and yoga, I'm feeling so much better. Like my back is just, I barely have any pain. I'm taking turmeric. I'm taking this turmeric anti-inflammatory. It's so wonderful. And he looked at me, he's like, turmeric? Oh, that's funny. And then I said, have you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza? Because I had one of his top hematologists who's studying blood right now, and how the debris in the blood that they scientists never thought they would need the debris. It's literally called debris in the blood. That is how they're tracking meditators versus non-meditators. And he's on episode, I think 15. I had him on very early on in my podcast. I heard him speak at the Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation 7-day retreat. And I was fascinated with this guy. He's tracking scientifically in blood how meditation and yoga actually changes the genes in our body. I mean, it gives me the chills. So I'm telling this PT my story, and he's like yawning and rolling his eyes. And I said, no, you don't understand. Like, I've met people who had bladder cancer at this at this retreat, and they walked away and they didn't have bladder cancer anymore. And he's looking at me like, he goes, oh, do you think you can meditate and get red hair if you wanted to? And I didn't get offended because I look at everyone with like half glass full, rose colored glasses. But later when I got home, I said, oh, he was making fun of me. And that's okay. I probably would have made fun of that kind of idea too many years ago. But I've seen the light from the inside way too many times in the last 2 years, being part of Coherence Healings and studying with my coach from India also. So much wisdom in the East, so much wisdom in spirit and in energy. And we're so fixated on skin and bones and orthopedics and medicine that physically goes in. And really, we're getting it all wrong, because if we really go into the energy and we're held by, let's say, a yoga teacher one-on-one, or a practitioner who can do cranial sacral work over the areas in the body, or a coherence healing where hundreds of people gather on Zoom and they send love and light through the internet, to someone's pancreas or shoulder, that is messing with I'm getting the chills just talking about it. You are creating a space. You, Jitendra, are creating a space for very powerful healing. And when someone says, no, I need to go to a yoga class in person, I like being adjusted, that feeling, because it is a nice feeling when you get the Reiki of the person over you or under you. But I'm telling you, as someone who lived through a freaking pandemic where I was in the Walking Dead video game, my voice is in it. I went out when I snuck outside to go to the park, because I still did it, because the CDC actually said you could go out for 15 minutes if you wanted to. So I would like run every day for those 15 minutes. I would time it because I like to be by the book, but I put my hands in the earth and it was still freezing outside. And it felt like the Walking Dead. People were dying inside from so much anxiety. And so I just want to thank you so much. How do you say thank you in first of all, what's the language that your family speaks? From
Hindi.
Oh, you speak Hindi. How do you say thank you in Hindi?
Dhanyavad.
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 Beautiful. All right. Well, I just want to say dhanyavad. How do we get to you? How do we learn about you? Do you have a book coming out? Tell us everything.
So thank you for that, Barbara. Great chatting with you as well. We have a free trial, a 15-day free trial. Go to myyogateacher.com. We have incredible classes and one-on-one sessions. We have classes for Tantra meditation. We have Trataka meditation. We got like really authentic, deep teachings, bhajan, kirtan, satsang, mantra chanting, kriya pranayam, on and on and on, that you can actually learn a great deal, connect with a huge community. All you have to do, go to myyogateacher.com, sign up for the free trial, 15 days, first 2 weeks, you actually get to kind of try for free. And, during pandemic, as Barbara, you were kind of mentioning, we actually gave away 1 million free classes. because that is what our mission is, to improve the physical and mental well-being of the entire planet, and that situation called for that, so we did it, and this is kind of what we're building on, in terms of being true to our mission. So come and try it, and try it for free, and then decide. Love to have you as members.
That's how I got hooked. It was the 15 days of saving my life. Really, I was so anxious. And I'm sure it actually had, I should give you partial credit for writing this, because honestly, it helped connect me to my creative side, which to me is the most important thing when we're suffering from anxiety. I always say, okay, what am I going to do? What are we, me and God, going to create with this anxiety? What are we doing with it? Otherwise it stays static. But I want to give you a blessing, because that's how Jewish people leave each other. At least those who know that it's a custom. I didn't have it growing up. I didn't know anything about giving blessings, but I want to give you a blessing, if you'll allow me, that, I'm going to cry. What you did by giving away those 1 million classes of healing, may God protect you and hold you and your family in the same way, the same loving way that those teachers held all of those millions of people. And may you always be taken care of. May your health always be good. May you always have financial success. And may you feel the ramifications of all that healing. May it just come back to you tenfold.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Really appreciate that.
Say amen.
Amen.
Okay. Amen in Hebrew, I just want to tell you very quickly, is made up of Aleph, Mem, Nun, Sofit. And those are 3 letters. El, God. Melech is a sovereign being. Ne'aman, that has faith in us. So when we say amen, it completes the blessing. So
beautiful.
You taught me some a beautiful folklore I wanted to teach you too. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.